Good afternoon, welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. It's no news to any of us who watched the debate last night that few words come to mind that describe it well, other than lackluster. And frankly, it's a cause for concern in our nation, as we have two presidential candidates who are spending more time mudslinging than virtuously fighting for values and policies. And here to discuss what Michigan is expecting as a result of that debate is Matthew Handley. Michigan is expected to be a swing state once again in November. Do we have a feel for how last night's debate affected the presidential race for Michigan voters? Matthew Handley writes at The Purple Catholic. He's also the host of Ave Maria Radio's interstitial morning news program, Michigan Mornings, and he's the co-host of the Flatlining podcast from Fulcrum Strategies. Matthew, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Hi, Marcus. I'm doing well. It's good to talk to you again.
Likewise. I have very little that's truly positive to say about the events of yesterday's debate, other than let's keep praying for our nation. But let's talk about the impact of the debate as it pertains to Michigan.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be any sort of instant polling that took place. I saw on a couple of the networks last night, they had some voters in Pennsylvania weigh in on the poll. I know the Detroit News published an article this morning where they talked to a couple different Republicans and voters up in Cass County in the Thumb, and they said they were frustrated that not even the first question was answered. It's frustrating when we don't get clear answers from our politicians. Yep. As I was speaking to your producer last night and just before now, no one won, and certainly you and I didn't win. The American people didn't win.
Nope, the American people didn't win.
And I would like to say that, maybe it'll move the needle, but I don't think it did, because Harris had an opportunity to define herself last night, and she didn't do that. And Trump had an opportunity to prove that he could be a good boy like he did in the last debate, and he didn't do that either. And so we're kind of at a stalemate of where we were before this debate took place. Latest polls in Michigan have Trump and Harris pretty close. The last poll that was published was from the Telegraph newspaper in the UK, and they had him within Harris was 3 points up, and the CBS News poll from a week before that had Harris up by 1 point. So we're pretty close here in Michigan. It still could go either way. I'd be interested to see what comes next and how both candidates react in the media, whether or not they do another debate. Yeah. That might have more of a sway. The vice presidential debate might have a sway, but that's yet to be seen.
It was very clear that, given that Harris has entered the race so late in the game, it was very clear that there was a need for a more nuanced, a more policy-driven debate, so that the American people could be properly informed. Instead, what we were greeted with was with poor rhetorical flourish on the side of both candidates. One leaned towards a more aggressive approach, a more bull in a china shop approach. The other to pandering sentiment. But largely, at the end of the day, it was empty rhetoric. There wasn't really a lot of substance in terms of making informed voting decisions.
Yeah, it was clear that Harris was well prepared on her talking points, but she was also well prepared on just exactly that, what little things could get under Trump's skin, bringing up people leaving his crowds and yep. all that. For whatever reason, Trump can't resist not talking about those things. He wanted to relitigate COVID. He wanted to relitigate the 2020 election and January 6th, crowd sizes. If he didn't do that like he did in the last debate, I think he would have come out better. And if Harris hadn't had done that, she might have come off a little bit better. ABC News might have come off a little better if they kind of didn't allow that to happen and actually stuck to their mics off rule. So there's blame to go around on both sides, like you just said, about not staying focused on policy.
And therein lies the issue. You finish the debate and you realize you haven't really learned much in terms of where each person stands, other than what we already know from the media thus far. The other problem that we do have is, prior to this debate, it would appear that, especially after the events of his attempted assassination, the touted media narrative would have been that this was Trump's election to lose. Now, though, this could truly swing either way, because yesterday Trump was in poor form, and Harris was successful. She baited him well, and he took the bait, especially when it came to rally sizes, which really wasn't even an important issue to begin with.
Yeah, that's true too, and I think you're right that now it was Trump's debate to lose. It's now a little bit more of a toss-up. I do think the media honeymoon with Harris is come to an end. You're starting to have networks that are getting frustrated that she's not doing interviews. You're starting a couple nights ago. You had Aaron Burnett on CNN kind of mocking something that Harris had published back when she ran for president in 2019 and 2020. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I want to put my hat on, but it's one of these things where everyone was wrong in 2016. A lot of people were wrong in 2020. It's hard to say.
Yeah,
I would like to look a little bit too at what this means down ballot, because we do have a Senate race here in Michigan that for the first time in a while we might have a Republican win. However, he hasn't been polling very well. They've both agreed to 2 debates coming up in October, which will be on television in the Detroit and Saginaw areas. I'd be interested to see if they go the route that Harris-Trump did in trying to just goad each other and mudsling, or if they're actually going to try and talk about what they're going to do when they get to Washington. That might be more interesting to me at this point, honestly, than the presidential election.
What's hilarious is both sides are claiming and declaring victory for the debate last night. Yeah. Which leaves the entire American populace wondering, what on earth did we watch, and did we watch what they say we watched?
Yeah, and if that's a victory, I think we need a new copy of the Merriam-Webster dictionary to kind of verify that information. I don't think it was a victory at all for anyone or for either of them. I mean, I suppose on being prepared, Harris might be the victor. Trump may need to go back and actually do some debate prep, which he said he didn't do for this one. But other than that, I mean, no, this wasn't a victory. Anyone who says that is lying to themselves and to you.
Yeah. So in the interest of being Catholics, and we are truly political nomads, we're not here to align ourselves to either one political party. We are for the kingdom of Jesus Christ. In that regard, we also have to acknowledge neither one of these candidates is expressly for the Catholic gospel, for the gospel of Jesus Christ. And therefore, this is a massive, problematic prudential judgment issue.
It is absolutely a prudential judgment issue. I've been writing on my website, purplecatholic.com, about some of these issues, including the fact that we need to have a very well-formed conscience going into this election. And we really need to pray about what it is we need to do when it comes to voting in November or earlier if you choose to early vote. You're right. We have an issue where even on the life issue, we have 2 candidates that are not expressly pro-life. Yep. That's a problem, since the bishops have repeatedly said that ending abortion in this country is the preeminent political priority. Neither candidate seems to have a real answer on how to, quite frankly, help the poor. I was surprised healthcare came up last night, since that doesn't rank very high in any of the polls. But even then, it wasn't even an issue that people care about with trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act. That's something that's not going to happen. And it doesn't do anything to help fix our healthcare system to talk about repealing the Affordable Care Act. So we really need to, I would encourage everyone to really take the time to pray and make a plan before they go vote. Make sure that you're aware of what is on your ballot in your area. And I would also encourage everyone to read Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship. I think that's the best resource we've got right now in the U.S. It was updated a couple of years ago with a new introductory note. It's not a voter guide. That's something to keep in mind, that it is not a voter guide, but it uses church teaching, including the teachings from the Second Vatican Council, John Paul II, Benedict, and Francis, in how we ought to be participating in political life, because we ought to. We're in a country where we have the unique opportunity to have a say about what happens, and we might be in the minority as faithful Catholics, but we ought to. It is our duty to, as we love God and love neighbor, it is our duty to participate in our political process in this country.
And therein lies the great moral issue. Because, in fact, I want to add on to exactly what you said. So read Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenships, and then evaluate the key issues that are on the ballot and look up church teachings pertaining to that, even if it's so far as the Catechism of the Catholic Church, just so that we can form our consciences rightly and then make those informed decisions. Because this is a rock and a hard place situation, and we can only vote our conscience to the best that we form them.
Mm-hmm. And, you take the life issue, for example. I think it's clear Trump is less bad on the life issue. But he's repeatedly said he won't sign a national abortion ban. He's now gotten into this government payment for IVF, which, as I was reported on Michigan Mornings, is, the Catechism says that is morally unacceptable. We need to evaluate all these issues as we're going into November. And like I said, I think the best way to do that is to read and be informed, and, of course, to pray.
Well, Matthew, I want to say thank you for making the time to speak with us. God bless you and all the work you're doing in Purple Catholic.
Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you.